starting a company at any point in your life is an irrational decision. Statistically, most companies fail, most startups fail. Indian immigrants are taking away the jobs of laid off American tech workers. That's not exactly true.
Let's talk perplexity.
I think we need to start moving from answers to actions.
Would you say this also enhances the monetization capabilities of AI companies?
I would say like everyone's been waiting for, okay, when is AI really gonna make like a ton of money?
Would you still do this all over again if you were a student at IIT today?
Hello and welcome. I'm Sruthijith, and this is The Quest, a new show from the Economic Times. We hope to bring you conversations about the personal quests and journeys of some of the most exciting people in business and tech. We'll talk about the moments in their lives and careers that made all the difference. We hope to go deep into what drives them and what ultimately shaped their trajectories.
Our guest today is Arvind Srinivas, the founder of Perplexity AI, which is among the best-known GenAI companies today. He's an engineer trained at IIT Madras and the University of California at Berkeley, and an AI researcher who has worked at DeepMind, Google, and OpenAI before starting up. GenAI today is a crowded field where giants jostle for supremacy, and the rise of Srinivas and Perplexity, now valued at $9 billion in this hotly contested field, has been quite the underdog story. He has also found himself at the center of a raging debate over immigration policy in the United States, which unfortunately has taken on racist tones and revealed deep fissures. I hope to talk to him today about the evolution of GenAI, the future of search, about the growth and future of Perplexity itself, and when does he hope to finally get a green card.
Thank you for having me here.
Firstly, how has life been since Christmas Day?
Been pretty busy. Been meeting a lot of people here. Obviously, like a lot of going on online on Twitter and stuff. But I try to just stay focused on the company and everything we are planning to ship at the beginning of next year, and what all we need to be doing to further differentiate ourselves is basically what I'm focused on.
Has could you reflect a little bit on? I mean, you've been quite open about your thoughts on merit-based immigration to the US or skilled immigration to the US. Have you been taken aback by the reactions that suddenly over the last 2 days have emerged on social media? Have you been taken aback? Have you been surprised by the vitriol that it's not necessarily targeted at you, but you and Sriram are obviously two of the most important figures in this debate. So some of it obviously you're probably being targeted as well. So how have you felt about the whole affair?
I mean, it's certainly surprising. Clearly, it surprised everybody online, and it's not exactly data-driven. The claims that the H-1B or Indian immigrants are taking away the jobs of laid off American tech workers. That's not exactly true. And Indians are also being laid off. And honestly, the real problem to US right now is the illegal immigration. That's what the government really needs to cut down on. The numbers are just one order of magnitude higher there. And even in legal immigration, the problem is actually in which sectors are getting laid off, or not necessarily the ones that the Indian H-1B applications are coming for. It's mostly in the tech and engineering, and the people who are getting laid off are not necessarily all the engineers. So if people actually took a look at the data and saw it for themselves, they wouldn't be this angry. So I feel it's gonna all settle down, and I think we should all feel good about someone as high caliber as Sriram is influencing the AI policy, and people need to understand that he has nothing to do with immigration and stop taking his past tweets out of context here.
But the way this is played out now, it seems like it goes quite to the heart of what, say, Donald Trump has been trying to achieve by bringing in, Elon Musk, making him, people like Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, a key part of the administration, and then also to get other very prominent Silicon Valley figures. But now it looks like that whole scheme or program itself is under attack from at least a section of his base. So, do you think Sriram's appointment and your very visible status as a founder of a very high-profile company, while being, while being there on an H-1B visa, is this somehow very suddenly very core to U.S. electoral politics?
I think it's like look, I feel like the DOG, the Doge, is not really part of the administration. That's number one. People need to understand that. And I think even Sriram's appointment is more of an advisor. So they're not really like running anything, if you want to use the same word that tweet used. Uh, it's mostly to like guide and influence the policies, but the decision makers are still like people that are like government elected officials, and they're still not the Silicon Valley people. So that's important to keep in mind. And I guess like the important stuff thing to realize is for the good of the nation, the most qualified people should be part of like the room that's making the important decisions for the future. And for something as influential as AI, the more people from Silicon Valley that are involved in the government, the better, because these are the people that are actually pretty close to the scene in terms of what's the latest, what's going on, what's likely to be the future. They're talking to the engineers, they're talking to the CEOs of all these startups and big companies. So it's important that like they have a voice in the room, even if they're not the actual decision maker.
And are you hopeful that this debate that has emerged at this particular juncture will change things for the better, or are you apprehensive that the nature of debate might end up pushing the outcomes to an adverse corner or an adverse direction?
I think it'll all settle down and people will calm down and realize that like it's see, like, at the end of the day, it takes time to seek truth, and like truth data will reveal the truth of like where the jobs are actually like going to, and what is like a bigger concern to the country. And at the end, like America's the most prosperous nation in terms of per capita GDP and the total GDP too. And only if that continues to be the case, they have all the supremacy they can have in like defense and everything else, like and influencing other nations and things like that. So if you really want to live in the the winning country, you do want to make sure that like people can come and like contribute to it in meaningful ways, and most people will see rationality and reason over time.
Let's talk Perplexity. You mentioned early on that you're now focused on shipping new features, etc., in the new year. Can you tell us a little bit about what is coming?
Yeah, so the past 2 years were you can summarize it as like sort of a big paradigm shift in how people are getting their information that's online. And earlier they would type in keywords and sift through links and click on them and try to like join the pieces together in their head. Now an AI is essentially doing that work for you, so you can directly get to asking questions. And I feel like question answering is becoming a big part of like everyone's lives. Like earlier you would ask your friend a question, and then if the friend knows, like they would tell you the answer, or else like they would ask another friend, or they would go do their research. Now it's all like just one question to an AI and you get an answer instantly.
This is what you have very memorably called plexing.
Yeah, plexing, exactly. And I think like that's going to be people are going to take that for granted. The only thing that's as fast as the speed at which technology evolves is the speed at which we humans are getting used to it and taking it for granted. And so that means like the next 2 years need to be about something else, not just answers. Links to answers was a big theme for the last 2 years. I think we need to start moving from answers to actions. Like after reading an answer, what do? Usually you're you're researching something with the intent of taking an action, right? Sometimes it's completely curiosity driven, and those are okay, and that'll still continue. But a lot of the times it's like, oh, like, what should I do if I have this specific need? What should I buy? Or like, which, if I want to like spend the last 3 or 4 days of the year somewhere,
Can
and
an itinerary be made?
yeah, can you help me make an itinerary? But then after the itinerary, what?
Make the actual booking.
Making actual booking, and if the actual booking is not available, coming back to you with like new suggestions, and then offering to do the new booking on your behalf, and then like buying things for you, like buying gifts for you or buying gifts for somebody else on your behalf. All that stuff needs to happen for AI's promise to really complete the loop.
Or even
Research.
make a PowerPoint presentation.
Exactly. So convert your answer into a like slide deck, so that you don't even have to do this manual copy. Like a lot of people, the way they use generative AI tools is like they take some part of the answer, they copy it, they paste it in a Google Doc, or they, um, paste it in a Google slide, and then they present it. Like, why even like let people do this burden, cumbersome
Formatting
work?
of,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I think all that's going to happen. Like, it's going to get more and more workflow oriented and less of like a tool. And when it becomes like workflows, like a lot of these things can even be like scheduled and automated. And I think when that'll be the moment you begin to feel agents like being part of your life, and it almost feels like you have someone working for you. And I think all these things are exciting, and they're going to happen in so many different verticals. So we are very excited to contribute in some meaningful ways here.
So, would you say that the first sort of wave of, this particular iteration of consumer-facing AI came a couple of years ago when, say, Perplexity was founded, when ChatGPT, the early versions were open to the public, and so on. So we all got used to, a pretty smart bot, giving us answers and so on. So therefore, now the next wave you think is going to be this agentic phase where we can get smart bots to do our work for
Yeah.
us.
And not just that, it'll be very personalized to you. Uh, Question answering is very hard to personalize because most of the times you get, roughly the same answer. Sure, we can prioritize certain sources that are likely to be more of your favorite over somebody else. Or if we already know you don't like certain things, you can just discard from the answer. Like those kind of things we should certainly try to do. But I don't think you really feel the fact, like, oh, this AI really truly understands me until it like starts doing things for you, and over time figures out, oh yeah, I don't even need to clarify these things. I already understand, and I like begin to feel like a true executive assistant. I think that personal assistant sort of thing. I think when that happens, you're gonna have a pretty different relationship with every AI you use. You're gonna now a lot of people are like, oh, I don't really know the difference between these different apps. Sure, sometimes some apps are way more accurate than others, but I don't really feel the difference, as such. Um, but once the agents start to work on your behalf, that's when you'll feel like, okay, yeah, look, this agent really understands me. I've already been transacting with it. I've already been like working with it. And now like I don't feel like moving away from that to like another agent, because it's still a lot of work to like bootstrap it and train it to understand you. I think that'll become a big theme next year. Personalized agents and personal, I wouldn't even agents is a buzzword really, like, but when AI begins to take actions on your behalf, and you know and getting more and more personalized to you, you'll begin to feel like that you do have an assistant. And I think that's going to be very powerful.
And would you say this also greatly enhances the monetization capabilities of AI companies? Because the moment transactions begin to happen rather than just an interaction, then there is a lot more monetization potential.
100%, yeah. So I think this is going to be the beginning of like I would say like everyone's been waiting for, okay, when is AI really gonna um make like ton of money? Because the data center build out costs are just insane. And the revenue that's being made in AI right now is so much lower than the amount that's been spent to train these models and serving them, As you can see, like OpenAI loses like more than 5 billion a year.
How much does Perplexity lose?
Not like definitely like 2 hours of magnitude lower, but uh, I would say that the true promise is going to come from people realizing that it's actually worth paying for the AI. And right now, not everyone wants to, because uh, yeah, like the mentality to pay for like a superior question answering service is not like easy to internalize. On the other hand, the mentality to like oh, I just want to pay for this AI that does a lot of work for me, it's easy to internalize because it's like hiring someone for you. Like everybody does that. You're getting an Uber, you're paying the driver essentially, or and the platform. Um, you're hiring someone to like come clean your home, right? Cook meals for you. We have already internalized this concept, or age-old concept of paying someone else for work. So until now, AI hasn't been able to do that for any of us. And even if it begins to do a little bit of it pretty reliably, that's when like the monetization ability of AI apps will definitely go up. And then the second order effect of it is like each transaction itself can be monetized. Oh, like the AI agent takes a cut of the
Plane ticket.
payment, exactly, not just the vendor. And I think that'll lead to many interesting outcomes. And you could think of like advertisement models also there. You could think of like the vendors paying extra for giving certain special deals to the agents. Like actually, one thing I've been just hypothetically thinking about is like how would it look like if the ads are at the level of agents, AI agents. Like the user never sees an ad, right? So unlike Google, the different merchants are not competing for users' attention; they're competing for the agents' attention. That'll be very interesting, right? I haven't like it's brands need to first like get comfortable doing this, because like what does it even mean for you to like pay a certain dollar budget for agents that are like you're bidding amongst each other for the agents' attention.
So the moment I say, "Hey, I'm going to go to Ranthambore for 2 nights, plan my schedule, do my bookings,"
Yeah.
and the moment on the back end the agent begins to do that,
Yeah.
you will have 5 travel companies or platforms or
Correct.
airlines
Yeah.
competing for the agent's attention.
Correct.
And that whole advertising economy, I mean, they must probably be then bidding for the lowest price or whatever is the setting that I give.
Yeah.
But all of that happens without me ever having to, the human
Exactly.
user ever having to
Yeah.
see an ad.
And the interesting thing is the agent can be pretty. It can spend a lot more compute power, So therefore, it can still be aware that all these brands are advertising for my attention, and despite that, like, benefit from the advertising revenue. So that would be pretty interesting to consider. And I just want to stay away as a user from all of it. Uh, those kind of business models are also possible. So there are 3 levels of making money here. One is direct subscription in terms of like, oh, I'm hired this AI to be doing stuff for me, which is not usage based. The second is like
It's like a retainership fee
Correct.
to have my own
Yeah.
bot assistant.
Exactly. Second is like, oh, I used it for like a specific purpose. That's a task level. And third is like, oh, I take a cut of the transaction. And fourth is like, oh, like the agents can actually um, have advertisements thrown at them. And you can teach the agent like, oh, you know what, like these brands are malicious. Just ignore them, even though they try to advertise you. And the advertisers don't know that. That's a confidential interaction between you and your agent. So all these things are possible. Again, only if agents actually work. If agents don't work, these are all like hypothetical ideas. And reliability is the only thing that matters here. And that's why like we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. Like maybe next year, like a few things happen, few things work, but next 5 years, I think a lot of things will work.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the most impressive thing about this whole AI revolution has been the rate of change, much
Yeah.
more than what we ever come. Like how quickly some of these things have improved.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, we said, "Oh, there is too much hallucination."
Exactly.
It has dramatically come down. Like there is a lot of improvement. But just on that, on this bit, by how much would you say in the last 2 years that say Perplexity has been very active? By how much have the problem of hallucination gone down in technical terms?
Yeah, so I don't have like a accurate, number I can give you here, but a rough, pop sciencey number here is that when we started, you probably can note one, like two or three out of 10 queries were wrong. The first ever launch, there was some mistake or the other, and we were comfortable launching a product like that because that was our advantage against big tech. Um, but as like I would say GPT-4, when it came, you could clearly see like relative to 3.5, hallucinations were one order of magnitude lower. And now like with Claude Sonnet, 3.5 Sonnet, when that model came out, I would say two products in GenAI tremendously benefited in terms of like dramatic reduction in the number of hallucinations. One is us, and the other was Cursor, a coding assistant. And the adoption of both these products like increased a lot after Sonnet 3.5. I would say like if you're on a pro plan of Perplexity and you pick Sonnet 3.5 as your default model on your settings, um, it's very difficult to see a wrong answer. Um, I'm not saying it's zero, but probably like one in like 50 or something like that would be wrong. And I'm very confident that next year there'll be a model even better than this, which means it's going to be very long tail for each user. So it's interesting, right? Like within a span of 2 years, you can almost say like question answering is pretty much a solved problem, and it's a matter of chasing the long tail now. And like how there's no human on the planet Earth like who can answer all these questions in that span of time. So you're already having something that feels superhuman, but at the same time it doesn't feel threatening either. Like it's not like that someone's profession was to like just give you like accurate answers over any topic all the time. So this is a new thing, so we all can benefit from it.
I'm very intrigued by the model that you talked about, where ads are served that are not for the human eye but for the machine eye. Um, do you think subsequently then the prominent model might then be for advertisers to subsidize the end user, to say that you can use the bot and we get the privilege to pitch various services to your agent, right? Which is fundamentally how things get subsidized today, right? Advertisers are subsidizing a lot of media, a lot of usage.
Yeah.
Do you think that era could come to AI as well, rather than the predominant model today, which is for people to pay subscriptions, right?
Yeah. So definitely ads are going to be part of these products, but I think it'll give power more to the users and the uh, in this version than the previous version. In the previous version, the company running the service definitely benefited a lot from the advertisers. The users did not, right? In this version, the users are abstracted from the ads. Their experience doesn't get hurt. In fact, they have the power to like tell the tool to ignore certain brands, to ignore ads, and the brands can never know that. And the brands might still have to advertise to the agents. Of course, like brands have to get comfortable with this, but it may end up in in a position where they don't necessarily have an option if this is what the users want. So anything that moves the power more to the user from the advertiser is a good thing, because I think that's what people want. And that's also how disruption happens. Maybe the margins here are lower. Maybe the advertisers don't want to pay as high, insane margins as before, and that's totally okay. Like they say, like your margins my opportunity. Like someone has 80% margins. Maybe there's a business to be built by building roughly the same thing with a much better user experience, but like say at 30% margins, which is kind of what will happen between from the traditional Google search to like AI based interactions. I don't think any AI business will have the profit margins of Google search advertising. I think it's pretty much impossible. But at the same time, like, who cares, right? A 30% margin business is pretty lucrative for most people. Like, it's pretty difficult to build a profitable business at this scale anyway. So you gotta like kind of try to identify these opportunities.
When you were in college and when you started, working at DeepMind and OpenAI and so on, what gave you the? I mean, you would have always known that AI is in general an expensive field to be in. It takes a lot of computing power. So, what gave you the confidence to start up and think that you would be able to compete with the high and the mighty?
I mean, I didn't think I would be able to compete with the high and mighty, and I didn't like start up with because I was confident I could compete. Uh, I think you just start up because you're like, you don't, there's at least that few weeks or months of like utter ignorance and like, you know, supreme confidence, irrational confidence. Usually, like, by the way, starting a company at any point in your life is an irrational decision because statistically most companies fail, most startups fail, and usually it's like a time sink in your career. A lot of people who go back after shutting down a company to some other company regret the time they spent.
That's right.
But there's also the other side of this, which is like, what if you are on your deathbed and you're thinking, maybe I should have given it at
Give it a
least
shot.
one shot? That is the regret minimization framework of Bezos,
Yes.
right? So that plus like, okay, let's YOLO it. What's going to happen? We'll see. We'll find out. And for me, it was always like, look, I don't know if I'm, everybody has this deep internal doubt, right? Like, am I good enough to be a founder? Like, is this thing for me? You always ask this. At the same time, you're like, why should I keep executing on like someone else's vision,
Someone else's vision and
right?
dream. Yeah.
And you make peace with the fact that, okay, look, if I am in any company, it is their rights to tell me what to do because they have to execute. They have a roadmap. So you can't be mad at them for not letting you do what you want. At the same time, if you have the uh, sort of like chutzpah, just want to do everything your way, and don't want to listen to anybody, then you better, go do it yourself. Uh, if if the real world humbles you by like making you fail in your startup, accept it as a truth and either try again or move back to executing on someone else's vision. The only way to know if you are capable of executing on your own vision and earning the right to do it, even in someone else's company,
Just to do it and figure
is to
out.
actually do it and figure it out. And I didn't want the slow pace way of like waiting for 5 years, climbing up level by level to do it. I just wanted to give it a shot right away.
But when you worked in these companies, were
Yeah.
you that sort of that archetype of the 10x engineer who felt you needed to be doing a lot more, or that the others in the company didn't quite see where things were going? Did you have that kind of internal angst, which you then felt that you need to quench by starting up?
No, so just to be clear, I was never a 10x engineer, and I never considered myself as one either. In fact, like I was always aware that there were way better engineers than me, and I'm never gonna make it to the top by like trying to be the best engineer. Um, I had a very deep technical understanding of everything. I was a pretty decent programmer, um, but I was also pretty good at like high level strategic thinking too. I was pretty good at like communicating things, and I always thought like that ability to be deeply technical at the same time, like have like a pretty uh, good skill of like convincing others to work on something is a unique intersection that you have to like capitalize on, and most successful tech founders have that. So I knew that I wanted to be a founder. um I had some ideas on what I wanted to execute on. It's not that others didn't see it that was important. It was more that I wasn't given the resources to just go execute on that with the team. Rightfully so, because I didn't earn it, which is why I was like, okay, if I really deserve it, let me go find out. And now I'm like, okay, I think I can do it now. Like, right. So if I didn't go anywhere on the startup, I would have just accepted it and gone back to like writing code as an IC.
When you started up, could you take us through the early days? When did the first sort of substantial help or support or funding arrive? How did you pick your co-founders?
Yeah.
The early motions.
I mean, I knew my co-founder Dennis for at least a year and a half. So we wrote the same paper and like we overlapped at Berkeley. He was a visiting student, so we had been chatting about like many different ideas, agents back then even. Where Google DeepMind released like a simulator of Android, and we were talking about like training AIs to control apps. So even back then, we were pretty interested in doing something. It just never materialized. He was at Meta, then I joined OpenAI. We kept in touch. So at moment arrived when I met Elad Gil, one of our first investors, very famous investor in Silicon Valley, and he was just like, I don't care what idea you do. I'm just going to caution you to do something concrete instead of aiming for something too bold. Um, but I'm going to take a bet on you and put $1 million, and I'm going to introduce you to Nat Friedman, the GitHub CEO, and he'll also put in like close to $1 million, and you just get started and do something, right? We're taking a bet on you. You're a former OpenAI, Google, whatever, Berkeley PhD. You'll figure out something, and then with that and some like the Musk style saying it, funding secured. So I said I convinced Dennis to quit Meta and come, and we both convinced his friend Johnny Ho to quit his job. He was a world number one competitive programmer, and so we convinced him to
He was a
quit.
world number one
Yeah,
competitive
world number
programmer.
one competitive programmer
And he was working where?
at Tower as a quantitative trader,
Wow.
and we told him to quit. And
Those companies pay a lot of money, right? Like
yeah,
quant
exactly.
trading
So
firms.
literally, the first 2 years, we didn't even pay him. As in the first year, at least, they pay a garden leave salary if you don't work in another trading firm.
That's right.
So we benefited from that. Like he actually said, "Okay, look, I don't need you to pay me that much cash. Uh, like just give me the minimum health insurance cash, and I'll take more equity." I'll say, "Okay, this guy really is like a co-founder level person, so let's take him on as a co-founder." And that's how like the company started.
Tell us a little bit about the experience of working with like world's number one competitive programmer. Like, what is that like? I mean, does it accelerate your pace of development? Does it raise the bar for everybody else? Like, what is that like?
I mean, look, like if you don't want to code, like you better have like someone who can code like
Crazy.
10x better than you, right?
Right, right.
Uh, so look, I mean, when we worked, like we were kind of like deciding to work together, we told him that we're not going to interview you, right? Like you're better, you
You've kind of proved yourself.
right? Like you're better than us at everything. So the right thing for us to do is work on some tasks that would feel like how it is day to day, and we call it a trial. We see how it is mutually. If we like, if you don't do that much work, we can only conclude one thing: you're not excited about it because you're highly competent. There's no way you cannot do it. And similarly, it should convey the same message to you. On the other hand, if you're actually doing it very fast, it means you're pretty excited about it and we should work together. And that way of presenting it worked out. Like he was actually pretty excited about it, and he was very new to AI, so like he liked tinkering with all these models. And I think that within like a span of a week, we decided to work together. And I would say like it truly was a big differentiator. Like uh startups are all about moving fast, right? Like momentum is everything. And with someone as talented as that, coding for them, it's very effortless. They can do like 80-hour work week of some regular good engineer in like 40 hours. It's true. A lot of people argue against this concept. Oh,
Of 10x
high,
engineer, yeah,
high
it's
IQ,
controversial.
high
Yeah,
IQ does not exist. That's like refusal to accept the truth that some people are just completely
insanely good at
out of
what they do.
distribution,
Yeah.
and it's just an honor to be able to work with them.
Now, so Perplexity is fundamentally, I mean, would it be correct to think of it as a layer atop other, large language models like Claude or ChatGPT and so on?
Yeah, so we use every model out there in the market that's very frontier and state of the art. And we also take existing open source models like Llama and like post train or fine tune it to be very good for our product, which means training it for the skill of very good at summarization, which is the core skill, referencing citations, like at the end of every sentence, make sure the right source is pointed out. Formatting, don't be too verbose, just get to the point of the original query. uh, Reasoning, like sometimes the query is pretty complicated, so break it down into parts and put the pieces together. And then structured outputs, sometimes a query might need like bulleted markdown, or like comparisons might need tables, those kind of things. uh, and multi-step breakdown, like uh, if a query is too long, like you know make it into parts. Like we do all these post-training work on top of Llama, and we do it on top of other people's models too, like OpenAI or Anthropic or Grok or any of these models. So and then we package it all into one product and offer it to the user. The default setup, depending on the query, we route to the right models. We conduct a lot of evals, and we know exactly like how to like make the experience amazing for the user, so you don't have to think. And I think most people don't want to like decide. They don't really understand the nitty gritties between these different models. Some people are very like aware. Oh, but this is the best model, or they just want to like. It's like if you have a TV remote, you try different settings, or some people tinker with a lot of settings on their phone, some people don't. So some people do that, and like they pick the models of their choice. We have never wanted to be like competing for who has the smartest AI model, mainly because it's not possible for us. Like we're not
It's very resource intensive, right?
resource. Like you got to have like at least 10 to 20 billion dollars in capital. If you want
$20
to,
billion.
yeah, like just look at the money raised by any serious player in this space. Google obviously has infinite money. OpenAI has raised in total of at least 20 billion. Anthropic has raised more than 10 billion. XAI has raised 12 billion or something like that. Meta, similar to Google, has infinite resources. So if you really want to be in this race, why even compete in this race if you don't have that much cash, or go and raise that much cash, but then if you start late, you will be late on like using the cash to buy GPUs, build your data centers. Elon did something crazy, like where he built this whole data center in like a span of a month, but that's inhuman feats. I'm not
Even
capable of.
Jensen talked about it, right? Like
Exactly,
how
exactly. So that's the only way he got to compete, and even he started pretty early. Like people think XAI came only now, but XAI started in um, pretty much like in end of 2022 or something, or early 2023. It was a pretty early start. They took a while to get going, but they started assembling the team way earlier, and Elon already guaranteed them funding. So I didn't want to compete in that game. Instead, I knew that no matter what models each of these people build, uh, bringing the power of all these models to these mere mortals, which is the users, to be harnessing the reasoning capabilities in ways that will truly improve the quality of their life and let them do a lot of things and ask a lot of things, is still very valuable. In fact, I would say it's even more valuable in a world where models start getting commoditized. So that might take a while. Until then, we might feel like, oh, this company doesn't really build anything deeply technical. They're just a wrapper.
right.
But there's a lot of technical layers to build on top of the models, actually. Like all these different post training stuff we do, and like multi-step breakdown, and like reasoning, formatting, structured outputs, different intent classifiers, depending on whether it's queries finance or travel or shopping or like local, and then working with the right data providers for each of these and ingesting the data in real time. All that stuff requires a lot of domain knowledge and work that like unless someone's full-time focused on it, the product will suck, right? And these companies will try to do both. the model builders.
Yeah.
We're saying that extreme focus on this will
Give
differentiate
you
us.
the
Yeah,
advantage over.
exactly.
Okay, but is this a matter of debate within your company, that or you and the company feels very confident that this is a worthwhile game to be in, and it will remain a competitive advantage, and you won't get like swept up when the big guys start building all this application. I mean, the application layer.
Yeah, look, I think about this pretty much every day. Like more than whether it's a company thing. I gotta be consistent in what I say, right? And the real thing is that AI is this funnily interesting thing where you cannot sprinkle it on top of an existing app and claim you have shipped something. Uh, People have tried that, like Google tried putting below the search bar, Meta put it in the assistant. Sure, there's some usage for those things, but not as dramatic as you think. It did not kill the existing front ends like ChatGPT or us. Our usage kept growing still. Why is that? Because in a user's mind, a specific app is meant for a purpose. You, in your head, you're already like internalized the fact that WhatsApp is meant for messaging people. And when you open WhatsApp, there are like a ton of group chats with like, hundreds of unread messages. You're just scrolling through them. You're not like going there to chat with an AI. You don't have an index of your past chats. You cannot actually store all your library of threads there. You cannot like do other things like customize experiences, like, also different, you can't build custom UIs there. There are constraints. So what is interesting is that these big companies cannot leverage their existing distribution uh, for AI. They have to go and build standalone apps, which is why Google built Gemini. Now, if you build a standalone app, you're accumulating users from scratch. Sure, you have a brand, and that brand lets you acquire a lot of users from the get go. And you also can spend a lot on App Store ads and stuff. You can put it right below your search bar. You can advertise it everywhere. All that's there. But retention will be very low when you spend so much on like user acquisition for a completely new app that like nobody has used yet, which is already being seen, right? And that's the story with Microsoft Copilot. They have all the branding power of Microsoft, but why did Microsoft even have to build a separate product? Why not put it in Word or like Bing and everything? Because it's hard to just sprinkle it in the existing front end that
Usage doesn't
already
pick up.
works, right? It disrupts the current experience. People don't like it, and like they have to go and do something new. So that's why a new startup that's building a new AI product still has a shot at the game, because everyone's getting users from scratch on a standalone app. You don't have their distribution and branding, but you have the ability to move really fast. You have the ability to build a much better user experience. You don't have bureaucracy. You can make decisions much faster. You can take more risks as a younger company. So whatever advantages they don't have, like, you have different set of advantages, and time will tell who wins, right? If we don't get users really fast, if we don't keep growing our usage, obviously we'll lose out to the big ones. But if we keep growing in our usage and we keep shipping unique features that they don't move as fast on, people are just going to view them as one other app, and they're not going to see them as, oh, this is a big tech app, I'm going to use it over a startup. They're just going to use the best product.
On how easy or difficult has it been to raise money?
I would say it's not as easy as, some people like to think, oh, how is this company raising so many funding rounds in succession? It's an effect of exponential growth this year.
In users or revenue or both?
Everything. Just to give you like a sense, like we had beginning of the year, we were making like 3 to 4 million in annual recurring revenue, and now we're pretty close to like 70 million or something.
Oh, I read somewhere 35 million, but I
No,
suppose
that's not.
since that has grown.
It grows
Right.
fast.
Right.
So you can clearly see that's grown a lot. And in terms of query volume, like we were doing 2.5 million daily queries at the beginning of the year, and we
Now it's like 20 million.
yeah, I think now there's some dip because of December, but at least in the end of first 2 weeks of December, we were doing 20 million daily queries. So that's literally almost 10x. So it is only natural that our valuation increases because we're not just growing usage, we're also monetizing it. And next year, it's like going to be, we believe that we can keep growing at this rate, at this and uh, if you're able to do 100 million or more daily queries, which was actually the volume of traffic Google handled at the time of its IPO, and every query on Perplexity is actually like 10 or 11 words compared to Google's 2 or 3, so it's actually pretty
More
even more.
intensive
Yeah,
engagement.
exactly, way higher intent. So then you start to think about like, okay, like if we monetize it, the average revenue per for paying user, the average revenue per query for a paying user is actually way higher than what Google had for the average revenue per query at the time of its IPO. So I think all these things were are like really looking positive, and so that's why like investors are willing to invest. At the same time, there's always skepticism, like, okay, I get it, you're a great product, you're growing really fast. At the same time, like ChatGPT is coming after you, like they're, shipping the search thing right within the chat UI. It already has like 300 million users. It's the ultimate brand synonymous with AI. Like, what if that curtails your growth? What if you're no longer able to grow this much? And then Google is coming after you too with Gemini and all so there's the positives, there's a competition, so that's why, like, it's possible to excite investors, but it's still difficult to like actually close funding rounds.
One last thing I want to ask about AI is, on large language models, which is, in some ways the most exciting development of the past few years, it's fundamentally about predicting the next word, right? And now, of course, there is inference computing and like much more reasoning and so on. When we think of AI in the sense that artificial intelligence will enhance human intelligence, it will help humanity to expand the boundaries, say, of pure science and so on. The 7 or 8 mathematical problems that have remained unsolved for more than a century, they don't seem to be showing any signs of being solved or so on. Like, so how do we judge that much more than predicting the next word and then, sort of generating smart answers? And they undoubtedly, they're very smart. I mean, I'm very, very impressed with, really, there seems to be a lot of reasoning, problem solving and all of that. But when do we get to that point, you think, of like expanding the boundaries of pure science?
So I think we are pretty far from it, and it might even be the case that the current paradigm is not
It's not
enough
the
for
one,
it.
right?
I know that there's a lot of excitement about these O3 models that were recently released by OpenAI because they were superhuman on software engineering and coding benchmarks and things like that. At the same time, it's like incredible amount of compute thrown at a single prompt, like worth like $1,000 or something like that per task. So, which is still okay. Like, it's an interesting paradigm to think about. Oh, what if I threw $10,000, $100,000 at a question and got something amazing? Because the award for a Clay Mathematics Prize is like $1 million, I think,
That's right.
right? So
That's right. And the last person who was offered it didn't take it.
exactly,
Right.
Yeah,
Perlman, yeah.
Perelman, yeah. Uh, my sense is that these models are like still pretty in distribution in terms of what they can do, but they're showing some signs of auto distribution thinking, which, and again, the boundaries are blurring between what is training set and test set anymore. Uh, what the new paradigm, the O3, O1 paradigm is interesting is that they're training these models to like go do RL, like reinforcement learning, not the predicting the next word. So these models are like training to on a reward of like completing a task. And so at least if you train on a distribution of tasks, like a lot of tasks, if you throw a new task at the model, like it might be able to like just go and figure it out. And but there's still a lot of things to scale at inference time. What if it can actually go and run a whole RL job at it, collect reward signals, go consult other humans, get a lot of feedback, and then go do another round of RL? Like if that level of iterative systems, like lifelong learning sort of thing, uh, does not exist yet today, but we are clearly moving towards that sort of a paradigm. And I feel like a real breakthrough could happen, but it's so far not happened. And if it happens, like I think it'll be like we can kind of call it like super intelligence or something, right? Like it's the equivalent of like building an AI mathematician or AI scientist, and maybe we'll have to spend insane amount of money to get there. And it's cool that these frontier labs exist to like try to do these things.
And maybe it needs quantum computing for that, you know.
I don't know if quantum like chips are needed for this. It seems to me like a lot of the compute can be figured out with the existing GPU chips.
Technologies. Okay.
Blackwell has still not even been used. The B100s are, the next generation NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah.
They're not even being used for the current systems yet.
I see.
So it's possible that they'll speed up all these things by at least like, at least the claims are it's like an order of magnitude speed up. So it'll be very interesting to see how that also impacts the conversation here, because some experiments that are not even possible today can be run. And most likely these companies will have to raise, another big round and build a bigger supercomputer. But it's interesting that we live in a time where even like taking these bold bets are like considered
Possible.
reasonable,
And yeah,
right?
I know. It's very exciting. Yeah. How do you respond to the criticism that large language models are trained, on data and material that others have, like publishers like ours, understandably are very upset, and the New York Times, as the New York Times case, the lawsuit demonstrates. What's your response to this criticism?
Yeah, so I think like look, we took a position that we're not in the model training, the pre-training game. So we even our post-training that we do, we're just training it on skills and not on like actually like reproducing content. Uh, and my belief is that like uh, at least in our case, Perplexity's case, we are attributing sources and we're not actually training on any of their data. So I feel like we are doing things the right
A little
way.
better than the others.
Yeah, there's one way of looking at it, but I feel like what we're doing is completely fair and reasonable, and we want to even recognize the fact that we wouldn't survive if new content isn't being created, because the product's values in the real-time nature and like new content, good sources. And so we want to like share our revenue with the publishers. That's our way of thinking about it. I think OpenAI's approach is like license the content and pay for it as a license fee. And there are some merits to that approach too. But long term, I think like you need to create a system where like your revenue is being shared in a continual way and not a one-time fee. Because once you license it for a certain period of years and train all your models on all data, and your models have already absorbed the intelligence, and you say, okay, I don't really need your data anymore, that would be kind of weird, right? So that's why we came up with a structure where like our long-term success is still financially incentivizing our publisher partners.
Because media has already been severely disrupted in the web era. Digital already did not work for the
Yeah.
media ecosystem to generate expensive content. But in the AI era, like there is not even a listing of or an index of lists, right? Like Google used to send a lot of traffic to publishers. In the AI era, Google and all big platforms will just give you the answer. So there is not even any traffic being sent. So it's probably another wave of disruption coming to original publishers. So I agree, possibly that some other way of monetization will have to emerge. Now, lastly, Arvind, you are in some ways the epitome of the Indian American dream. You went to the IIT, you went to Berkeley, you've gone on to found a company in the hottest possible domain today, and which has gone on to be a close to a $10 billion company. Having undertaken this journey and knowing what you know today, especially finding yourself at the center of this raging debate, would you still do this all over again if you were a student at IIT today?
Like if I were actually studying IIT now, I think that's an interesting question. Like I haven't thought about it. Like back then when I graduated, it made a lot of sense to go to the US uh, because like compute was, hardly available here. It was completely like horrible times when like, just getting the GPUs in the institutes were like so hard. And my professor actually worked really hard to get me the GPUs. Uh,
Who was this?
Professor Ravindran like he actually pulled a lot of strings to get it on time for us. But it was pretty difficult. Just getting
But you were not in computer science, right, at the IIT?
exactly. Yeah.
Even then.
Despite that,
Wow.
he got the GPUs. You had to figure out all these workarounds where, if you put the that server rack in this department, you could get in faster compared to getting it in the computer center. And like access would just work randomly. If you get to the computer center cluster, they would just like go around randomly and things like that. So I think like all that stuff has improved a lot now with cloud and compute credits, API credits. So we are living in a different time compared to like when I graduated, which was 7 years ago. So I honestly don't know what I would do now. I know that I made the right decision back then, right? Now is an interesting choice. There are some merits to staying back and building here. Now you can say, "Oh, so convenient for you to say,
Now
dude."
say.
You
Right.
said it. You go there and you build stuff there, and like now you're asking people to stay back. That's why I'm saying I don't know exactly what I would do, and I think it's reasonable to take a risky bet of staying back and doing things because things have gotten easier. At the same time, there are some things that you uniquely get access to there, the peer group and like the founders and investors. So it does like make sense to go there too. Uh, I guess what I would say is doing a PhD right now may not be the best use of your time, which is why I'm saying I don't know what I would do. Back then, I was 100% sure PhD was the right thing to do because AI was still like a research topic. Right now, it's not clear to me if there's much value in doing a PhD in AI, mainly because it's so you got to have such insane willpower and strength of mind to like ignore all the progress that's literally happening almost week after week after week, and all the new products
The
and
field is
stuff,
exploding
right? And you're like sitting in some lab on
for
a
4 years.
Saturday morning. You're like poor, getting paid like PhD stipend. Your friends are making millions,
Right.
and like you have to like still focus. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult. So I wouldn't recommend a PhD right now. So in that case, like, what do you do? How do you even get to the US without like doing a PhD? Like, you do need an F1 visa. As you know, things are getting difficult. So because of visa constraints and the fact that PhD might not even be the right thing to do now, I might actually have stayed back.
Are you building Perplexity for it to be acquired or to run it for as long as you can?
I would love for this to be an IPO and a successful independent company. I know it sounds far-fetched right now given the revenue that we have, but it's totally possible that if we keep growing at a good pace and don't get too far ahead of ourselves for the next year and just focus on user growth and try to like get better at monetization in 2026 and 7 like just scale both monetization and users, we will be very well positioned in 2027 if things go well, right? And so I'm aiming for like a position, like a very strong position where if end of 2027 we're looking great as a business and as a very well-known brand, would be a great time to IPO for the year after that.
Lovely. All the best, and it's been a real pleasure
Thank
chatting
you, I
with you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.